Tune in to Exposing Excellence with Roanoke Valley Leaders, a special summer series released every other week on the Dear Business Coach podcast. Join your producer and host, me, Elizabeth Walker, and I sit down with a remarkable Roanoke Valley leader every other week to uncover insights, successes, and strategies for achieving excellence in their field and yours. Don't miss out on these opportunities to learn from local leaders, elevate your own leadership style. Subscribe now and start exposing excellence with us. Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. I wanted to ask you about Instagram and TikTok, but I don't know if I want to. Right? Or maybe I should because
maybe I should.
Because the other day you said that what did I briefly, well, you gave me a tip about it. You said something about Instagram and I said, well, I just don't know how to use it. You said good photography, but the important thing is picking something that you concentrate, that you personally
like to focus.
Okay.
Because as we all know, or most people know, Instagram started out as nothing more than photos. It was a photo sharing platform. Everybody posted their great selfies, their pictures of coffee cups, if you're me, their pictures of landscapes or beach sunrises, again, if you're me. And that's the way it was for several years, or for a few years. And then they started incorporating video. Then Facebook, which is now called Meta, purchased Instagram. And since it has become owned by Facebook, Facebook has been on this never-ending quest to overtake TikTok. Because it's funny, because in the world of social media, very rarely do people get surprised. Nobody saw TikTok coming. Literally no one. It kind of came out of nowhere. The younger generation started using it, and it just exploded. Well, that was around the time that Facebook purchased Instagram from the people that created it, is because they wanted something that was a different app than Facebook that they could use not only for photos, but for videos and things like that. So ever since then, Facebook/Instagram has been kind of chasing TikTok with all of the trends. Because if you see a trend or a feature that is on TikTok, it's going to be on Instagram soon. It's such a copy each other type process. Well, having said all of that, they can still be good tools for some businesses. It doesn't mean, again, that every business needs to be on Instagram and or TikTok. The approach that we always take, no matter what the platform is with somebody or with a client that we work with, is what is your target audience? Where do they live? If they live on Facebook, then stay on Facebook. If they live on LinkedIn, then make LinkedIn your home. Spend all of your time there. But if you're trying to broaden your appeal and your reach to different age groups and different segments of the population, then maybe consider TikTok or Instagram. The running joke has been for people that don't want to be on TikTok is, well, I don't want to dance on camera. Yeah. That's how they think about TikTok. Yeah. And that's a valid point. So if you don't want to dance on TikTok, maybe you're good with putting an occasional video on Instagram or using beautiful images on Instagram. So you can still use those platforms. It all comes back to that same initial conversation. Where does your audience hang out? What is the content that you're most comfortable creating and presenting as content from your brand? It may never be TikTok, and that's okay. Just because everybody else, and I say that in quotation marks, is on TikTok doesn't mean you have to be. There's the discussion about TikTok being banned and all of that, and people not wanting to be on TikTok because it's not American owned, and I respect all of that. I don't think it'll ever be banned, but the point being is decide where you want to invest and invest where your audience is. And don't worry about what that latest trend may be, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, or whether it's Snapchat or whatever the case may be. Because the one thing about social platforms is they can come and go quickly, more quickly than you realize. And I'm going to say this, and some of the listeners may recognize this, some may not. But does anybody remember when we had a Google Plus social network?
For 2 seconds.
See, that's my point. So it can change quickly. And just because that was a social network started by Google, everybody thought, well, it'll succeed. It'll take on Facebook. It's something that's different. It's all integrated into Google. It just, and that can happen. So no, I don't think TikTok will be banned, but for every business, not every business needs to be on TikTok or Instagram for them. It's, you have to decide what fits best with your brand and your target audience.
Right. So if I have figured out that LinkedIn is my space and I'm focusing on one or two things, that's what I can handle right now.
Right. That's perfectly fine.
You know, and you know, I don't I'm not afraid to use Instagram or TikTok, but I am afraid that my efforts there are going to look poor because I don't feel skilled enough at it. Now that's where you can come in if you want to help me, but you know, I already know that probably focusing on LinkedIn is what makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was interesting what you said about newsletters. It sounds like you can get more detailed analytics from looking at that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The LinkedIn newsletters provide some very good analytics as far as who the subscribers are, how much of the articles they read, how many article views. And I mean, the nice thing about it is with the LinkedIn newsletter, the analytics go back for an entire year. Now, it doesn't mean that, 2 years from now, you can go back 2 years, but you can always go back one full year as far as the analytics on the newsletters. So it does give you a lot of detailed information. And that's one of the other things that is part of the conversation we have with prospective clients is, okay, let's say we go down this path of working together on your digital media presence and your content and all of that. What are the metrics? What are the analytics that you need to see?
Okay.
Is it the number of followers? That's not going to be the answer because cringe. We'll come back to that. Is it the amount of engagement? Is it how often they click through to your website? Is it how often they go from social to sign up for your own email newsletter? What are those metrics? Now, and it's funny because not anytime, but a lot of times whenever you ask this question of a business owner, the answer is more sales. I'm like, no kidding. That's what everybody in the world wants. But, and I'm not saying that social media cannot drive that, but you've got to kind of come in from the backside of saying, okay, first we need to make sure that we have something in place that tracks the traffic from social media to your website, and it tracks those conversions so that we know that sale came from that post on Facebook, or whatever the case may be. So yes, everybody wants more business off of social media, but you have to look at the amount of traffic that social drives, the amount of engagement that drives traffic to your website. And it's all part of deciding, okay, here's what we need to track. For a lot of businesses, the key components of what they want to track include click-throughs to the website. It can include filling out not a survey, but like a question of how did you hear about us? So they can drive that and show that it came from social. Another one that a lot of businesses use is email signups, not like on LinkedIn email newsletter, but your own email newsletter for your company. That if it drives them to the website and they sign up as they want to join your email list, that came from social. That's quantifiable. You can see how many signups you get in a day, a week, or a month. For some businesses, they just want to see that engagement because they know that social engagement from their fans funnels into their website. and it drives the traffic to their website. So that's part of that initial conversation is what are you looking to see from social? We all know you want more business, but the metrics that you need to track, just like if you were running Google ads, or if you had an AdWords campaign running on search engines, you want to track that and see how much traffic it drives and which pages on your website it goes to. Does it go to products? Does it go to customer service? Does it go to about us? And track where all of that traffic comes to.
Right. Now, you just said something that goes right into my next question. And I guess, does this apply? Okay. You said we want to get traffic from social to my email newsletter, my email list. And I am just one person. So I don't have a website. What do I do now?
What I would recommend, start out with LinkedIn, keep building the presence on LinkedIn, even utilizing the LinkedIn newsletter feature, because that gives you that capability of sending out regular updates, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, to your subscribers on LinkedIn. But I would also encourage you to put a plan in place, be it 3 months, 6 months, or a year, of even if you don't have a what I would call a full-blown website, which is multiple pages, etc., even if it's just a landing page, that's one page that people get to and say, this is what we do. Here's where you can find our podcast. Here's where you can find our interview series. It's kind of a, again, landing page for people to go to.
Are you an executive or team leader looking to enhance your public speaking skills and leadership qualities? Join me, Elizabeth Walker, for a transformative full-day seminar on October 18th, 2024 at the beautiful Jefferson Center in downtown Roanoke, Virginia. As the host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast, I am thrilled to present a unique event featuring international comedian Clayton Fletcher. In his Power of Laughter masterclass, Clayton will share invaluable insights on what comedians know that all business people should know. Discover how to infuse humor and wit into your business presentations, strategies, and captivate and connect with your audience in a meaningful way. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to learn from a seasoned stand-up comedian and apply his expertise to your professional journey. Join us on October 18th for a day of laughter, learning, and growth. Secure your spot. Contact me, Elizabeth Walker. You can reach me through email. That's dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find a link to buy tickets, reserve your seats, and invite your team. That's going to be at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Look for the Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher ad. Contact me today to reserve your seats and elevate your professional development. Talk to you soon.
But at that point, when you do get that landing page or website up, then you can look about starting your own company newsletter, email newsletter. Because when they land on that landing page on your website, one of the things you want to encourage them to do is sign up for our email list. Be the first to know about this, and this. What that does is because you can start building that company email newsletter and send it out again, weekly, monthly, whatever the case may be. That same content is exactly what you publish to the LinkedIn newsletter. And you can start talking to those people on LinkedIn, getting them to sign up for your company email newsletter. The reason being is, just like every other social platform in the world, LinkedIn could decide one day that they're doing away with that newsletter feature. Happen. LinkedIn could decide one day, okay, if you want to keep the LinkedIn newsletter, it's a premium feature that you have to pay for. So see, at the end of the day, we always encourage people to own their content and to try to drive them to what they own, which is their website or their own email list. It doesn't mean that you can't use the social platforms to drive traffic. And like with LinkedIn and their LinkedIn newsletter, it's a great feature. You don't have a way to own those subscribers on LinkedIn.
Mm.
Not unless you're going to have somebody just one at a time, take their information and enter it into your email database off of your website, because you can't export them. LinkedIn is probably never will allow that. I don't think they'll ever do away with the feature. It may become a premium paid feature. I don't know. But at the same time, I'm very hesitant and I'm always cautious when speaking with clients. If you're putting all your eggs in a social platform basket, be it LinkedIn or TikTok or Facebook, anything can change with those social platforms and you lose all of that content, you lose all of those connections. So ultimately, I encourage businesses to get people to their own website or to their own landing page and their own newsletter, their email list, because anything can happen. I mean, I've seen people, I've got a real good friend of mine. She and I have been friends for years. She's had a presence on social for years. We've done business together. We've referred clients back and forth to each other. Was it her Instagram account that got hacked? Either Instagram or Facebook got hacked, but it effectively locked down both of them. Facebook came back and said, you've been posting content that, what was the words that they used? Not pornographic. It wasn't that. It was content that was like suspicious activity.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And she literally jumped through every hoop trying to get her accounts back, and she couldn't. She had to start over with a new Facebook profile and new Instagram profile. And again, this was her personal profiles, but it also drove traffic, it drove interest to her business. And starting over again, it's just kind of that lesson of these social networks, we don't own anything, obviously. The terminology that we use is don't build your business on rented land. Social networks are rented land. Even if you're paying for LinkedIn Premium, those features can change at any time. Facebook can change of how they do things, how they promote things in the algorithm. It can change to where what you're doing and the content that you're creating and publishing and the advertising dollars that you're spending just aren't as effective anymore. And other than switching and changing and trying different things, there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas if it's on your landing page, if it's on your website, you own that. So it's a balancing act. For you, I would. And for a professional, I would say if you don't have a website or a landing page now, put that as something that we're working towards. Doesn't mean that you have to stop everything and do it today. But make that a goal for 6 months or 12 months. In the meantime, build up your presence on the social network that you prefer and that is better fit for your target audience, but always be working towards getting people to your own website.
Yeah. Now, are there things that I can do like that as an individual? If I work for an organization or a corporate entity, can I still use your coaching and will your advice apply to me if I want to generate activity, if I'm a sales team leader, for example?
Sure. Absolutely.
So, is it cut and dry? Do I just kind of do the same thing as an individual that I would, let's say I have a sales team. I'm here in Western Virginia, right? And my company, there's offices all over the southeastern United States, but I have a LinkedIn profile here in Roanoke, Virginia.
Right.
So I want to generate activity and eyeballs to me in my office to generate leads for me and my team.
Sure.
But it's not my company. I represent somebody else. Can I still do this?
You can still do this. What would come into question is, do you have the ability or the budget yourself, or corporate provides you a budget to do some targeting advertising and some targeting of different geographic locations based upon the content that you're posting on social? For something of that nature, I would take the content and whatever social platform we're talking about. Let's use LinkedIn since we've talked about LinkedIn a lot. The content that we're publishing on LinkedIn or that you're publishing on LinkedIn, we would build ad campaigns around that content that would hyper focus based upon a set of criteria. Okay, first of all, it's going to hit Roanoke, Salem, Christiansburg, Floyd, maybe Lynchburg, maybe Franklin County. That's going to be about it. Mm-hmm. So we would market and promote that content in that geographic location, and we would further define the demographics to include, okay, we want to target people that are between these ages. Right. We want to target people that are at this education level, maybe college graduates, maybe a little bit further in their education. We can target from an income level standpoint. We can target that, they have a need for this type of product. So the targeting on ads within digital media have come a long way. Mm-hmm. You can set those demographics on a pretty fine-tuned basis so that if the content that you're publishing and you want to market to a certain segment, you can do that. So from a standpoint of, or from the example that you provided, if you're working for a much larger company, but you're responsible for the Southwest Virginia territory, we would try to focus the content that is being published and promoted, we would focus it into Southwest Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds easy enough, but I think if I tried to look at that, I would, it would take me all day.
Well, and that's where we can take some of that off of businesses and professionals' shoulders, because it's like in the way that we, a lot of times when we have the conversation with businesses, is okay. As a business owner, you typically do not do your own taxes.
No.
Most do not.
Shouldn't.
Right, exactly. As a business owner, if you get a contract that you need to sign, you don't read it and just sign it. Typically, you have an attorney look over it to make sure everything's covered. Well, marketing and digital media and all of these things that we talk about, it's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. You bring in the expert that we do this day in and day out. And it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, somebody that we used to work with for many years, and he and I have remained friends. And we were having a conversation just in general terms about hiring internal people versus outsourcing. And he said most companies, and he said this is just my experience. He said most companies, even if they can afford to have people employed that are marketing, a marketing team or a marketing person, he said typically it's a small department. There's not a lot of people. And he said they're so busy with day-to-day things for the company and trying to run marketing for the company. He said where they drop the ball is staying up on the latest fill in the blank.
Calling all two-wheel enthusiasts, get ready to rev up your earbuds with Pin the Gas Podcast, the ultimate motorcycle racing podcast, hosted by Chris Simcoe, one of our very own excellent leaders here in Roanoke, Virginia. With expert analysis, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive writer interviews, Pin the Gas Podcast delivers the adrenaline rush of the racetrack straight to your ears. Whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer, you'll gain insights that will transform how you watch and understand motorcycle racing. Pin the Gas Podcast.
The latest trends, the latest social platform, the fact that you should focus more on video now than anything else, the fact that you should be producing a podcast if you can because they're hugely popular. The average marketing person working for a company doesn't have the time to stay up on all of it. That's why bringing in an outside agency, such as the Social Buzz Lab, is advantageous because we come in and bring the expertise and supplement what you're already doing. Very, very rarely do we come in and replace a marketing team. And if that happens, it's because that marketing team was on its way out anyway. Yeah. And we may feel, it's kind of like a fractional marketing team. We're in place until they bring somebody else in. But we typically come in and bring our expertise just like your CPA does, just like your attorney does. And for companies, small and medium-sized companies especially, that's kind of the sweet spot because most of those companies don't have the need to have full-time marketing people employed. A lot of times that marketing person is also doing 6 other things. And that's where we come in and bring that expertise of that ad campaign that we were just talking about, that you have to, drill down to the demographics, and you have to make sure that you're hitting the right segments, and all of those things that most marketing people don't. It's not that they don't know how to do, they just don't have the time.
Right.
So.
Sure would be fun, but that would take all day. And it would.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of challenges, but it's a lot of fun. So.
Great. Well, one of the things that what we're getting to, what you were highlighting for me in conversation earlier, is that marketing needs to be a part of your built into your strategy.
Absolutely.
Or some people like to use the word pillar, or
yep.
If it's not already built into my corporate structure, I can ask for your help to fill in.
Right.
Sounds like I'm going to learn a lot.
True, you will.
So I might be able to learn from what you teach me and try it out on my own.
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of cases where we'll go in and work with clients, and we teach them everything that they want to know. I mean, if it ultimately means that we work ourselves out of a job with that client, then that's fine, because then they can take it and apply it themselves. So, I mean, it's not something that is so secretive that we're not going to share with you. If you truly want to learn, and the goal going into this is, okay, we're going to into this engagement for 6 or 12 months, but ultimately I need to learn this so I can do it on my own. I can't afford to outsource it long term, or I just don't want to. Great, understand that. We'll work with you. We'll help teach you what you need to know, and then we're available as a resource if you need additional help. But with a lot of companies that we work with, that's the case. They take what we do, they learn what we do, and then they apply it themselves. But we do have that conversation with business owners, is marketing, and I'm using marketing as the umbrella term for digital media, website, PR, all of it.
Okay.
But marketing is as much a part of your business conversation as anything else is whenever you draw up a business plan. When you say, okay, we had a great year, but looking ahead at next year, here are the areas that we need to focus on. That's part of a business conversation. You talk with your accounting department about, receivables, payables, and what that looks like. Marketing has to be part of all of those conversations. How are we marketing today versus how we marketed last year? Maybe we need to have more, video. Maybe we need to have somebody that's the face of the company, that is branded as part of the company. Maybe we need to be involved in more of an online presence other than just our website or just a Facebook page. So it's not just a marketing conversation, it's part of the business conversation.
Okay, well, I have two questions for you that one, being part of a business conversation. I like that word a lot, because immediately that changed my visual from, I need to build a marketing professional into my plan right now. I've got to figure out how to pay for it for the next 3 months at the very least minimum. Right. And then you said business conversation, and then I thought an afternoon of starting a conversation with you.
Right.
That's way easier.
Exactly.
And less scary.
Absolutely. And that afternoon conversation we come back and we detail out, okay, here's everything we talked about. Here's our starting point. Here's the A, B, C, and D steps that we're going to go through. Here's what we hope to accomplish with each step. And after each step, we kind of evaluate and see where we're at, and then go on to the next step. And it's an integral, laid out marketing digital media plan of how we're going to get there. And the way we do that is having these, afternoon conversations that last, a couple, 3 hours over coffee, and flush out everything from, okay, this is where I see my business now. This is where I want to see my business going. This is the type of content that I have the time or the desire to create. This is how much I can handle on my own versus what I need help with. So it's all of that is part of that conversation that leads us to come back with a plan and say, okay, remember, these are the things we talked about. Here's how we're going to get there.
Let's say I'm a visiting professional in Roanoke.
Oh, okay.
Where would I go? What would be your recommendation For, I guess you could pick either food or recreation. You're gonna have to tell me where your favorite place to go for coffee is.
Oh, interesting. See, that's tough.
I know. Now
That
you
is
now
tough.
now if you have to name a business, that would be unfair, right? Because you don't want to be stuck
Well,
plugging one
well,
business for another.
let's go from a coffee standpoint
Okay.
first. I prefer to frequent locally owned businesses, and we'll stay
Okay.
away from naming names.
Mm.
But I prefer, if at all possible, to visit locally owned businesses versus chains versus national chains. Having said that, if I'm in a pinch, I'll get coffee pretty much anywhere. But I prefer locally owned, especially in the Roanoke Valley. We have some great locally owned coffee shops, and they're coffee shops that brew really good coffee, then sell it at a decent price. It's not overpriced, but it's very good coffee. So I would stick with something along.
Okay. So local, I'm probably guessing where I could invite you to coffee next, maybe.
Okay.
All right. So last question. Now, in your day-to-day tasks and duties, I'm sure you have things in your business that you could outsource. Okay. Is there something that you could outsource that you won't because you like doing it yourself?
Ooh,
I'm working on
that is a great question.
I think
Wow. Probably the thing that I mean, I could always outsource. And when I say outsource, we have a team that runs the gamut from graphic design to website creation to public relations, PR. So, I mean, we have a lot of things in house. Having said that, if there was something that I could outsource, but that I wouldn't outsource, it's doing the analytics. Number one, the analytics, they're not a pain in the butt, so to speak, but they are time intensive. So pulling the analytics and taking what you can pull from the social platforms and putting it into something that's easier for the client to read and understand is time intensive. However, it's not so much a control thing as far as not wanting to outsource it as it is of me wanting to see those analytics myself so that I make sure there's not something that's overlooked. So I could outsource it. I mean, I could hand it off to somebody on my team, or I could even hand it off to somebody externally, but I don't want to. So that would probably be the one that I would not want to outsource.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Well, no, thank you. Now it's my turn to ask you a question.
Okay.
If you could give your younger self a piece of advice, it could be about business, life, family, relationships, whatever. What would you tell your younger self and why?
Well, I have a daughter, and I do tell her this because I would tell myself this. When I was in figuring out what to do with the major in school, I had a very well-meaning advisor. I wanted to do an interdisciplinary degree. Okay. And that person told me probably not a great idea because it narrows your job market.
Wow.
Capabilities, or your literally where you fit in a box to apply for a job.
Yep.
And I took her advice, and I ended up being very happy with what I graduated with, but I would do that all over again.
Makes sense.
Knowing what I know now, I would have just studied the classes that I wanted to study the way I wanted to do it, because you're going to be able to get a job. It's going to be fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. That's great. I love that question. I can't lay claim that it was my own original. I've heard other people ask it, and I think it's a great question.
Yes, I was not expecting that.
It's always good to throw something in.
But I have thought about it.
Yeah.
What about you? Anything to throw in there?
The thing that I would, much along the same lines, not quite as specific, but I would tell my younger self, if you're passionate about something, go after it. Because the one thing that I think as a society, I think it was drilled into our heads for a number of years is, oh, you've got to get an education. Oh, you've got to get a degree. Oh, you've got to do this, because that's what society said. Well, I think there's a large segment of the population out there that went and got a degree, and they're still going, why did I do that? That's not really what I wanted to do. So I think I would tell my younger self is, if you're passionate about something, whether it's art or music or athletics or whatever it is, pursue it until you can. Because if you don't, there's going to be a point in time in your life that you're going to say, I wish I would have taken that shot. I wish I would have. Because in high school, because I was the typical kid in high school that's like, I'm never going to college. When I'm done, I'm done. Well,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
That changed in my senior year because my eyes were opened up to the fact that I could potentially qualify, and I did, for a musical scholarship.
Oh, I didn't know this about you.
That's something new. Well, I actually went to college for a couple of years under a musical scholarship, then decided this isn't what I wanted to do, so I stopped. Now I did go back and finish and got my business degree later in life, but I got into college from a musical scholarship standpoint. I'm sitting there going, I could teach music in school or college, or I could try to play professionally. And at that point in time, that was kind of the choices with a degree in music. I'm like, neither one of those sound great. So I stepped back from it. And like I said, I went back to college years later and finished with a business degree because that was more the path that I was on. But up until that, I never saw myself going to college. I still love music, still love to play music, but it's more of a hobby than it is a passion that I want to succeed and do as my livelihood. So that's why don't shut a door just because society says, well, you can't make money at that. You need to go do this. So for my younger self, I'd say, pursue that passion. If it fizzles out, if you realize, okay, I can't make a living at this, pivot. But don't look back later in life and say, man, I wish I would try.
Well, I wrote down pursue until you cannot. That's can I quote? Are you quoting that, or can I write that up?
That was just off the top of my head.
Okay, well, that's not putting that in John Lusher quotes. Like
you can take it and use it.
Pursue until you can.
That's right.
Awesome.
Very good. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Me too. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.